Hi Scott. Hi Abhilasha.
Hi, Tanishka.
Hi, Tanishka.
Hi everyone. So welcome to our webinar. That is Unlocking Enterprise Potential, Harnessing Open Source LLMs for Production. I am Tanishka Khandelwal, and on the behalf of WalkingTree Technologies, I am absolutely delighted to have all of us joining us today. So we have got an exciting session lined up where we'll explore how open source large language models can transform enterprise operations in the ways that you might have not even imagined. Before we dive in, let's take a quick second to welcome those who are just joining us. So, for those who are new to WalkingTree Technologies, a big warm welcome. We are a company that lives and breathes innovation, constantly pushing the limits of what technology can achieve. We specialize in cutting edge tech solutions, especially in artificial intelligence and open source frameworks. Our mission is simple yet powerful, that is to empower the businesses by implementing state of the art technologies that drive scalability, efficiency, and innovation. Today, we are going to focus on one of the hottest topic in tech right now, that is open source large language models. These powerful tools have the potential to revolutionize the way enterprises operate, from automating complex tasks to enhancing decision-making processes. Throughout the session, we'll explore on how open source LLMs can be seamlessly integrated into enterprise systems, unlocking their full potential and driving significant value for your organization. So we want this webinar to be as engaging and interactive as possible. So feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A box at any time. If anything really resonates with us or you have a thought to share, use the chat feature. Let's make this an interactive session. Let me introduce our fantastic speakers for today's session. First up, we're honored to have Scott Seabolt, our Chief Technology Officer, joining and paving the way. Scott, with over 30 years of experience in engineering enterprise solutions, is a true visionary in tech world, and he is here to guide us through understanding the open source LLM ecosystem, highlighting the key players and technologies. Scott's insights will give us a comprehensive overview of how these technologies are shaping the landscape and what it means for an enterprise looking to innovate. So next we have Abhilasha Sinha, our brilliant solutions architect. Abhilasha, with her 20 years of experience, will take us on a journey from development to deployment, sharing her strategies for the seamless integration of open source LLMs into her enterprise solutions. She'll also cover crucial considerations around scalability, security, and performance. Abhilasha's practical insights will showcase the real-world applications and impact of open source LLMs in various enterprises, offering actionable guidance for leveraging these technologies effectively. So our goal today is to give a clear understanding of uh, how open source LLMs can enhance your enterprise systems through real world examples and hands on demonstrations. Scott and Abhilasha will show how these technologies can improve scalability, security, and performance. So we hope that you leave today's webinar with new ideas and actionable strategies to apply in your own organizations. So I can see that we have received a few replies in chat. I asked the question that which open source models do you all use? So Abhilasha and Scott, we have received a few replies. That is Mistral, Bard, people are saying bots, Olama. Then Christopher is saying, I have used open source for several years. Our primary deploy method is right now is GitLab. And we have another one for Olama. So it's great, guys, that you're all interacting. So I would invite Scott and Abhilasha to take over the virtual stage.
Okay, Thank you, Tanishka. I'll grab sharing rights from you. So just to begin, we've had many webinars on the foundational models over probably the past year, I guess. And we've kind of had on the roadmap to do one on open source language models. And frankly, we waited a bit for them to kind of become a little more prominent, but also just as a company to make sure that we're actually using open source large language models before we start talking about them in a webinar. So that's kind of what prompted this one. We feel like now, there's a lot of really good ones out there. They're being used even in mainstream. We're using them, as a matter of fact, and Abhilasha, I think we'll talk about those a little more later. So now just seemed like the right time to kind of come and present these and talk a little bit about our experiences with them. So that's kind of what prompted this. We had it on the plan and just waiting for the right time. So I think right now is the right time. So that's why you're seeing what you're seeing now. So yeah, Abhilasha, if you want to move on, thank you very much.
Scott. Considering the recent open source models have become much more powerful, and I would say they've matured and ready to be applied to enterprise. So we are all excited about it, the kind of opportunities it brings along. Right?
Yeah, definitely prime time ready now. So what we'll do, just first of all, we'll talk a little bit in general about, as you see there, about why do we need open source language models, right? And there's certainly a few reasons for that. One of them is just accessibility. Open source LLMs, they can promote accessibility by providing free or low cost access to really state of the art language models now. And this ability really fosters innovation, and it allows us to have a wide range of developers and researchers and organizations to leverage the advanced nature of those language models. So, and we'll talk about maybe some of the not issues, but some of the methods of how do we deploy them, what does it take to deploy them, and even deploy them locally, right? So we'll talk about those, but certainly accessibility is one item that's driving the use of why we would need an open source language model. The other is like transparency. Open source models offer transparency in model architecture, training data, model outputs, and that transparency really enables users to understand how the models work and assess their biases, their limitations, and really help us to make. We use those to make informed decisions about their applications. So we can fully look at the way that those open source LLMs work because we have transparency. Then we can use them, and especially whether you're a company that has a specific use for it, or if you're a solutions company like us, it helps us to be able to find a wide variety of applications to use them in, and use the right one for the right purpose, right? So another item here is like customization. So Open LLMs provide flexibility for customizing the fine-tune and fine-tuning to suit specific use cases and domains. And that helps you as if you're a company that needs it for a specific purpose, or again, if you're solutioning these and you're an architect out there and you're saying, okay, what is the best LLM to use, and can I do anything with it, right? So it allows us customization, so we can use it for those specific use cases and domains, and that allows the developers to adapt pre-trained models to their needs. So we can integrate domain-specific data. They can optimize performance for particular tasks or languages. And then, another reason that we need open source models is, community collaboration is a great thing too. All right. So open source LLM projects really foster collaboration within the developer and research communities. Contributors can share insights, improvements, best practices, and that leads to continual refinement and advancement of those models. So you have a little more control, right? The community has a little more control and say so into what goes into the models. So that's certainly another a big item in terms of why we like to use open source models. The other is, like, for example, ethical considerations. So open source LLMs contribute to ethical considerations in AI development by promoting what we talked about around transparency, but also accountability, inclusivity, and then open source access to models encourages responsible AI practices, and it really facilitates scrutiny of potential biases and ethical implications, right? And then lastly here, really the global impact. Open source LLMs have the potential to for global impact by enabling developers and organizations to leverage advanced LLM processing capabilities. So this democratization of AI technology promotes innovation, diversity, and equal access to cutting edge tools and resources. Okay, if you want to flip, Abhilasha. Thank you. So let's take a look at some of the options. Now, we've already heard a few of the popular options mentioned, right? So, for example, Llama has been mentioned. I know Bard was mentioned. Mistral was mentioned. So we'll talk about several of those today. So kind of starting, and I'll just be very brief on each of these, right? But BERT is an example. So BERT is bidirectional encoder representation from transformers. And this one was introduced by Google Research and some time back, right? So BERT is designed to really understand the context of words in a sentence by looking at words before and after, and it really emphasizes its bidirectional nature, and that allows for better understanding of context capture. XLNet again it's kind of another. It's developed by Google AI and really a collaboration with Carnegie Mellon. And XLNet integrates the ideas from BERT and autoregressive models, and that enhances performance in various NLP, natural language processing tasks. And it really highlights the permutation-based training, which overcomes the limitations of like a traditional model. And then you've got Roberta, robustly optimized BERT approach. So again, this one kind of stems from BERT, but it was created by Facebook AI. So Roberta builds on BERT by using more data, training longer, and adjusting hyperparameters for better performance. And so, its success has been really the success of this one. You can see in various benchmark tests too. So. And test the impact that Roberta has had on even the BERT approach, right? T5, text to text transfer transformer. That's another one. It's developed by Google Research, and T5 treats all NLP tasks as text to text problem, and that really simplifies the process and allows for consistent performance across those tasks. And then we have Alberta. Again, you see a lot of BERT in there, but this is a collaboration between Google Research and Toyota Technology Institute in Chicago. And Albert reduces the size of the BERT model, rather, really without sacrificing performance. So it makes it more efficient. And then Electra, just briefly, that's another Google Research project. And Electra is efficient. And really an efficient pre-trained method for transformers. So it uses a generator discriminator framework to improve performance while being more compute efficient. And then of course a very popular one, right? Llama 2, Llama 3 by Meta, and Meta's contributions to open source LLM landscape with these models. And it really focuses on their improvement and specific use cases, right? But Llama 2, Llama 3, right? Obviously, a lot of us have used those, and we've used that one quite a bit as well. And then you come to Mistral and Mixtral by Mistral AI, and these are kind of newer models. And again, we've used these quite a bit ourselves. And I think we'll talk about Mixtral, an example of that a little bit later as well. And then just kind of moving on, where do we get a lot of this information on a model? Where can we get access to them and really get some of the details about them? And one of my favorite places to go is this Hugging Face Model Hub. And really, the importance of showing this is just to give you a place that you can go and you can get all this information, right? So the Hugging Face Model Hub is a repository for really a wide range of LLMs, and it provides easy access to the models tool and the tools for developers. So if you go out and take a look at that, there's just you can really find just about any type model you're looking for, and you can get detailed information on it as well, and even figure out how to download it. So it's really a good portal to look at to find whatever type open source model that or whatever model you're looking for. So one of my favorite places to go to learn about the different models.
Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead, Abhilasha.
Yeah, just to add, like if you can see to the left, like you can just filter by the task also, like, and you can see the models which are like, you can say well versed and more popular in those areas, or if it's a specific like a multimodal requirement or a text generation. So this is like the place to go if you're looking for an open source model, as Scott mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Abhilasha. That's good input. Yeah, it's really a powerful portal. And matter of fact, if I could share, I was going to show a couple of things on it, but that's okay. Just know that you can find that by going to huggingface.co, and then you can go to models, and from there you can pretty much get to any of that information that Abhilasha and I talked about. So very, very useful if you haven't. I'm sure a lot of you already know about it, but in case you don't, just know it's a very good place to go find information about these models. So Abhilasha, the next slide we have up is the independent analysis of AI models, right? And when you look at these charts, and this, by the way, was, if you see the bottom of the slide, and we'll share these, this was taken from artificialanalysis.ai. And I really like this because when we're deciding what model to use, just like any other architecture decisions in software development, you have to really operate on trade-offs a lot of times, right? So what you can do with these analyses is you can look at different things like quality, speed, price, for example, that you see on your screen right now. And you can kind of go, look, what is my best bet for quality? And if we look at this chart, you can see that that GPT-4o at the moment has the best quality, right? Well, maybe you're trying to balance that out with speed and price. So this really gives you a good way to look at these and mix and munch these different aspects or analysis of the model. So maybe you need to mix speed and price in with all that, right? So maybe the quality you can suffer a little bit to get more speed. Maybe that's more important for you. So maybe you can go to models, like Gemini 1.5 or Llama 3, for example. So really, these graphs, I think, are just really important when we want to go through and just really look at how we're going to, or which model we're going to choose, right? And what are the different characteristics of it. So before we move to the next one, Abhilasha, anything you want to highlight on these slides? Anything that sticks out to you want to share?
Maybe like one thing to notice here is that if you look at it's a comparison between your foundational models and the open source models. So you can see like the open source models are also catching up in terms of quality. So, I mean, not far behind compared to the foundational models. So you can see Llama 3 is like quite comparable, and same thing, but in price, like they give a lot of advantage for sure. So like for example, Mixtral or a Llama 3, which is like the lowest on price. Again, speed it's like a mix. But then definitely you have a choice to make in every range. So that's where these statistics help in making a choice, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what we've noticed too, right? Just different things. I remember a specific case where we were looking at even a vision model, and it turned out that gosh, and I can't remember which one it was. Abhilasha, it may have been Claude. I can't recall. Maybe it was Mistral. Maybe it was Mistral. I can't recall. But anyway, we noticed that it was really as performant as some of the commercial computer vision models. So that was even recently. So yeah, definitely catching up in terms of quality and speed and so forth, and certainly price. Obviously, it takes compute to run them, and we'll talk about that later. But definitely catching up for sure. And I like this portal because, like Abhilasha said, it gives us a chance to look at the open source and the commercials and look at those analysis and compare them in one spot. Okay. All right, Abhilasha.
Yeah, so like the next slide is again from the same, but it's showing the difference on the different, like it's showing the comparison on the different capabilities, different benchmarks that we have.
And Abhilasha, I'm not sure if it's me. Is that Tanisha? Does that look dark to you for some reason? I don't know why. Maybe it's just my
No, it did not
issues.
detect for me.
Looks good. Okay, good.
Is it good?
Yeah, it's good now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good. It's me,
Yeah.
not you.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay,
So
yeah, fantastic. So yeah, if you want to talk about this one a little further, go right ahead, and I can chime in.
Sure. So again, like if we look at the different capabilities, so whether it is reasoning and knowledge, or matter of fact, like coding as well. So you can see that Llama 3 is in the range of GPT-4 and Gemini. So that's where, again, here if you see reasoning, this is the empty bench. So again, Mixtral is comparable to the GPT models, the Mixtral 8x7B model. So again, here, like the different parameters, the different variations. But then that's where it becomes important to like decide what is more important for you, what kind of activity you're doing, and accordingly pick a model. So
Yep.
maybe I'll move to the next slide. So again, yeah,
Sure.
like a quick mention here. So this is like another place you would want to look to. So this is the Open LLM leaderboard, which is in the Hugging Face core website. And basically this again gives like a relative ranking of the different models on different parameters. And so this again will help you make a choice of what is the kind of activity for which you are looking for the model, and accordingly you can pick up the model of your choice. So yeah, just wanted to quickly touch here, Scott. Should I move to the next slide?
Yeah, to get to that too, really still the Hugging Face dashboard essentially, right? But this one, you just go into spaces and you can type search Open-LLM, and that leaderboard that she's looking at will come right up. You got the URL there too that we can give you, but if you're looking at that now, as I know many people do, that's how you get there. Okay, yeah, you can move on. Thank you. All right, so this is really kind of a continuance of what we're talking about, right? Except now we kind of start to get some specifics really that we've used more often. And when we look at Llama 3, for example, again, when you look at these comparisons, you can kind of see where its strengths are and maybe where it's not maybe as strong. And I think probably notice we've got kind of a yellow and green indicators here. The quality, as you saw back on the Hugging Face dashboard, maybe a little lower in quality, but I think we don't want to stretch that too far, right? Because it's still pretty darn good compared to even GPT-4o. But maybe a little less on the quality, but price, speed, latency, all those things are really terrific. And then, of course, when you see at the bottom there, context window, it's got a little bit small. It's got a smaller context window than average. So with a context window of about, I don't know what I think it's 8.2K tokens. So 8,200 tokens. So a little smaller context window average, but still, again, things are a trade-off. It depends on what you need to use this for, right? So it could still be, in terms of your application, a very useful model when compared to even like a GPT 4.0. Okay, Abhilasha, you can move on. And again, Llama 3, comparisons. When we look at this one, we look at a different model. So if you look back at the model, and I didn't really call it out well, but Llama 3, 8B, and then the next slide you're seeing is 70B. So you can look at the different models even with Llama 3 and see that, hey, okay, this particular model, speed and context window still a little lower, but then in this one, the speed's maybe not quite as good as the previous one, but the quality is really, really good. So again, it's about knowing the different models, even in Llama 3, for example, right? And knowing that these different versions give you different features. So it just allows you, again, a better way to really say, okay, what's the most important thing for your application, right? So again, it gives you some good info in terms of helping determine that. Mistral models, we'll see the same kind of thing, right? So Mistral, Mistral maybe quality is really good, price, speed, context window is a little lower than average. Speed, if we really look at that again, is the speed and price worth using it over, say, another model or even one of the commercial models, right? So just more comparisons. Anything you want to, I know, Abhilasha, you've got a little more experience in Mistral. You want to talk to this one at all?
Yeah, I'm good, Scott. So basically, the idea was to just give a view of the different parameters on these models, because these are some of the models which are comparable and may fit in the usual use cases. So we always need not go for a GPT-4, wherein a cheaper model or an open source model like Mistral, Llama,
absolutely,
these can satisfy, because they are faring well in many of these attributes, right?
That's right. That's right. And also note too the reference here. So the artificial analysis .ai, good resource.
Yeah. So definitely that's a good place to go if you want to look at the different comparisons. So on different parameters, different models, they have given a very detailed breakdown, and it's really a good site. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. All right. Now this is one that kind of the big question that we had when we first started thinking of using open source LLMs is just to look at what does it take to run it locally? Because there may be times, and there's certainly cases, right, where using an LLM locally as opposed to going out is just necessary. Maybe there's just certain restrictions around what a company can and can't send out of its own network, its own facilities. So in these cases, it's especially nice in terms of open source LLMs. But what you have to realize is what kind of compute does it take, right? So we've got we've ran LLMs on our PCs. We've even ran LLMs on mobile devices. But when it comes to some of the more common ones, what really are the specs? And Abhilasha, I'll let you kind of elaborate on some of those specs a little bit, but they're kind of self-evident. It definitely, running an LLM, depending on what you're doing with it, can require some horsepower for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can see this is the minimum requirement if you want to run with decent like latency, because you can see like with the configuration, as you improve the configuration with more layers, you can see the output increases, so the tokens per second, and the time taken comes down. So a better computing power will give you better performance. And but of course you can run on CPU also, like CPU only configuration is also possible, but then you can see the kind of time it takes. So it's just that like I mean, if there's something which you just want to run in the background, maybe you can still go for that case, right? So depending on how real time you would want your logic to be, you would need more computing power. If you want to like run it locally, or definitely like this will be a costlier option, I would say, because you would have to acquire these GPUs and all. So there are like other, you can say, better ways. You either go to the cloud, I mean, like clouds like AWS, Azure, GCP, or there are dedicated clouds only which host these LLMs and make it easily available for enterprise use. So yeah, moving to the next slide. So here, Scott, like what we have put is basically if you have to deploy it on a VM or a EC2 instance, for instance. So then what would be the kind of GPUs you would use? So this NVIDIA, and just for the context, so VRAM is the capacity to measure the GPU memory. So if you look at NVIDIA A10 GPU, this is one of the like good performance GPUs, so this is like for a model of capacity like a Llama 3 8B model in floating point 16, which requires around an average of 16 GB of disk space and 20 GB of VRAM. So this is like you can say a decent model, and it requires a decent size of 20 GB. So you can go with this single A10 GPU, which has a 24 GB VRAM. And on AWS EC2, you will get this in the G5 set of models. So if you pick up the X large configuration, so that gives you one A10 GPU. And similarly on Azure VMs, you have this NVAD's A10 V5 GPU, which equates to the same. And the kind of latency it provides, so about 50 tokens per second, which is like decent. And considering this is the smaller model of the two, so if you go for a Llama 370 billion parameters model, so this would require, so this is like a huge model. So if you see the requirements, 140 GB and one of disk space and 160 GB of VRAM. So for this, you would require like a multi-GPU instance, which is like a 48 times of the original X large. And then it is kind of 8 copies of VRAM, which so you split the model into layers, and it is like running on these 8 GPUs to give you so latency is around this, like slightly lower because this is a huge model. So it's like 50 tokens generated in 5 seconds. So depending on the complexity, depending on the latency, all these factors, you would decide if you want to go for a so the advantage with this approach would be that you would have like your own instance deployed, but you'll have to like take care of the maintenance and like the general aspects of how you would maintain a VM. Now, of course, I would just like to mention the LLM library here. So this is one of the libraries which actually helps you easily deploy your LLMs on these VMs rather. So it has your commands which you can connect to your AWS command line, and then you can run. So it gives you that capability, and you can actually set it up for distributed computing if you need, or if you need a real-time streaming, like as the tokens get generated, they should be sent back to the user. So those parameters can be set as you install your or as you start your model instance or using the VLLM library. So that's the thing I wanted to mention here. So that's where like and it works with NVIDIA and AMD GPUs. So it makes it easy to deploy any of these models. So it takes care of the internals of how the GPU gets managed through easy commands. So yeah, that's the idea here.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, maybe open source, maybe a free model, but obviously, there's rarely the case where something's really free, right? You still have to manage these. So again, when you look at the total cost of ownership, right, you have to consider more than just hey, wanting to run an open source model and thinking the model itself is cheaper. You still have to factor in your compute costs, right? So that's, again, if you're architecting this, you're developing this, you have to take all those things into consideration.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks, Abhilasha.
So yeah, the other option. So
hey, Abhilasha.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm just kind of going. I haven't gone through all the questions yet, but I noticed one we better probably tackle now before we move on. If you go back a couple of slides, one more, yeah, right there. I think this was the question that Nurmik had. It was asking, what are those terms inside the brackets? I'm not sure exactly, and you can clarify it for me, but I think we're talking about GPU plus CPU. You see in parentheses where you've got the configuration.
So these are like different configurations. Yeah, these are like different configurations. So like a combination of GPU and CPU with a kind like the number of processors and the number of like the CPU what do you say instances available. So these are the indicators to identify like what kind of configuration it is. So yeah, I mean, I'll also have to look back and exactly see what each one of it stands for. But yeah, the idea is like if you see here, there is a difference in the number of layers on GPU and the GPU memory used. So that's where the configuration is coming from. And as I already mentioned, like this is going up, getting better, and then that's where the time is coming down. So yeah, hope that answers.
Okay, good. Yeah, we can follow up if you need to, but yeah, I just wanted to hit that. I think that's what was being asked there. And what you're seeing with some of that too, if I'm not mistaken, Abhilasha, is like those Q5 KMs. Those are like quantization methods, Q5 KM, those terms like that you see there. So for like Q5 KM would be, this probably indicates, like you're saying, a 5-bit quantization method with specific considerations for maintaining model accuracy and so on. So just again, just an optimization method is what that represents. And I think you can actually probably just Google some of those when you look at this and get this slide. You can probably Google some of those, and it'll give you some specific details around that. But the Q5 KM, those are really more of the quantization methods that are used.
Sure.
Okay, thanks, Abhilasha. So when we're talking again open source, so we mentioned hosting it. We looked back and we looked at what it takes to run the open source models. Well, there's also the option to, depending on your application, again, some of the applications may require that, hey, you need to run that LLM locally for specific reasons, maybe company policies around data traversing a network and so on. And it may be very specific to say, hey, it's got to reside in this data center, right? So there definitely may be situations where you can't do anything else but host your own, right? But in cases where maybe you don't want to do that, there are also open source LLM providers, right? And some of those of course, you look at open source inferencing hosts. You've got like Grok and Replicate, Array, Mosaic AI, and then on the the fine-tune side, the quantization fine-tune models like Unsloth, and of course the open source model providers like Predibase and Unsloth together AI, Gradient, Anyscale.com. Those are some of the model providers as well. Anything to add there, Abhilasha?
Yeah, so like, yeah, as you mentioned already, I would just like to add, like, if you have to look at different aspects of using the model, so this is I would say, the most easiest way to get going quickly, because they provide these hosts available. And also, of course, Grok has been rated as the fastest. It is even faster than ChatGPT, and it gives good performance. But yeah, I mean, the enterprise version takes time, like, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, then so these things are also evolving, and we are seeing many players coming in. So we also keep trying out to be able to compare and decide which is the best one to pick, like, for our usage and for our customers. On the other side, like, if you look at fine tuning, which is another very important aspect, and basically, like, taking an open source model and fine tuning it for your specific use case would be like another good use of open source models. And that's where Predibase, Unsloth, so these give good notebooks to be able to use it. So in fact, the next webinar we have thought about will be something around fine-tuning open source models. That's the idea. So now we are just briefly touching upon these providers. Yeah, so moving on, like, also on the same website, you can check the comparison of how the same model is being provided by these different frameworks. So you can see a comparison of how many tokens are getting generated, like on a Grok versus a Fireworks or a Deep Infra. So you can look at, like, overall Grok gives like more promise. You can see better results overall, especially on the speed aspect. So Llama 3 is one, and then you have Mistral. Again, here also you can see that Grok is doing good. And then you have other players. So Mistral has their own endpoint, like cloud also, which you can directly consume. And then you have Deep Infra. Again, this is another good one we have tried.
Yep, awesome.
So yeah, moving on, like, as we saw the different variations of the models, we'll now just briefly touch on the different strategies, and then we'll look at one of the solutions we have used. So yeah, so we saw, like, how going into Hugging Face, you can choose the right model. First, you will have to identify the key criteria which you need for your use case or your requirement. What is the most important aspect, whether it is price you're looking at, or whether it is speed, latency, whatever it is. Accordingly, you can choose your model. What is the use case? You can apply the filters and pick up the model from the leaderboard. You will have to, so always there will be some factor of trade-off here, because as you saw, like, something which gives better accuracy may be slower or maybe costlier. So that's where you'll have to make a choice. And then in some cases, you may find a domain-specific model. So you can pick up that readily available model. And yeah, another important thing to check in the Hugging Face Model Hub is when you are trying or picking up a model for your enterprise use case, you have to check the license to make sure, like, it is available for commercial use. Scott, anything you would like to add?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we've kind of already already said it right around choosing the right model for your business. It really just kind of comes down to looking at all the different factors that are coming into play, and it could be factors like like data privacy and so forth. And there could be, not that the commercial ones even don't do a good job, or the ones that are hosted in the cloud don't do a good job of that, but it could just be policies too, that, hey, certain data just has to stay with us. That's a factor. All those kind of things are factors. And it really is just like, honestly, it's no different than when you architect, a software solution. So if you're building something like any kind of application, right? If you're building a SaaS, for example, you've got to wade through all those different things in terms of what the application does, and kind of what the architecture itself is, what kind of architecture do you use, how do you deploy it, all those different things. So it's all about kind of trade-offs. So I think it's just very similar to traditional software engineering. It just kind of depends on your application, and that's the beauty of all these open source models is we've got more variations now, and things that we can use to really kind of fine tune what model we use based on our needs. So, and with commercial ones, some of them offer some of that to an extent, but this just opens up a whole plethora of opportunities for those who are kind of architecting these and putting them in the framework of an application.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. So definitely, like after we have chosen the right model and we've decided what use case we are planning to solve. So and maybe like we would have to, so usually like you can still go for a POC phase with a foundational model and just validate the idea before you actually get on to the proper development. And that's where you would, and of course this is applicable on whatever use case it is, but you would have to set up your development environment. You will have to train the LLM for enterprise specific data. So depending on the use case, if you need to fine tune, if you need to customize your solution, so you would do that on the development environment, including the LLM, which could be any of these providers as we saw. Also, another important consideration which Scott mentioned, so security aspects, the policies, because you have decided to go with an open source model. So definitely you are looking at more stringent control and transparency of how your data is getting used. And that's where you need to make a choice accordingly and be vigilant and be considerate of all these factors when you're actually going ahead with this. And when you go on to deployment phase, again, this becomes important. Depending on the choice you make, you will have to accordingly adjust and consider whether it is a cloud or an on-premise, whether the cloud provider would consider or give you all the infrastructure benefits of scalability, security, or you would have to accordingly manage in your on-premise. And that's where it becomes a bit of overhead to like handle GPUs and this kind of complexity of computation on-premise. But of course, you can go for smaller models because now there is a choice. You have smaller models which run on less compute and even run on like laptop or a mobile phone, as Scott mentioned.
Right. Yeah. So maybe you don't need to boil the ocean, right? Maybe you don't need all of that. And that's the beauty of this now, is there's some smaller models that maybe you just need it for a specific purpose. So maybe you don't need, one of these huge models out there. So, and by the way, I think that was another question, was when to choose between an open source and a commercial model, right? And honestly, as you can kind of see as we go through this information, I don't think there's not just a binary choice there, right? You really have to evaluate, what's best. There may be some binary things out there where you're choosing one or the other. Like if policy is it has to run on premise, then that's kind of a binary choice. You can say, yes, you're going to need to use an open source model, but some of these others, it really depends. And you're going to have to factor some of these things in. And those are things too, by the way, I'll plug ourselves. It's something that if you have questions about that, feel free to reach out and we can certainly help you decide that. Abhilasha, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. So like accordingly, like once you make a choice, so these are some of the things you would first consider, and then definitely just getting into, and I'll quickly go through these slides where you have to consider like scalability is an important aspect, where if you are serving a multi-user kind of scenario, which would definitely be the case in a production environment. So how you're able to utilize your cloud platforms in a scalable way, and also with flexible resource allocation, so that you don't end up paying more and only pay for as much as you like use. So a scale up, scale down kind of scenario, where again those things you either go for a like a Grok kind of provider, or you go for a VM. So those things can be managed. It just has to be planned and accordingly carried out. So handling multiple requests, uh, taking into consideration latency, distributed training. So if you're doing a training, you want to do it faster, you can split it into a multiprocessor and handle it. Similarly, if you're handling like large data sets, processing the data set in a parallel mode, splitting the model itself to run on parallel, like multiple processors to handle like the huge models, just the one we saw, the Llama bigger model 80, 70 model. So accordingly, like these things will be considered and are very important as part of the deployment decisions. And some things become easier if you make a choice like a provider which takes care of most of these things, and there like your life becomes easier there. But some of the other things here, so if you look at security aspect, there are a few things which you will also need to handle as part of the application, that you're handling your data sensibly. You have data anonymization in place wherever there's private data. You're taking care of a proper version history. You have the required input validation. If it is a direct user-facing application, you would want your prompts to be like guardrailed or sanitized before they reach the model. Similarly, the output which is getting generated. So those kind of controls and like you can say a guardrail against any adversarial or any malicious attacks would be needed. From the application perspective also, that will have to be designed as a double layer on top of the model, because I mean, if you read about how the like the viral or the malicious users are trying to break these models and come up with new ideas. So it is always better to have these considerations when you're going up. And this is true for the application side in any case. But here, since the open source model is something which you are also trying to deploy and maintain, so you would want to have that extra care of like encryption, authentication, authorization, maintaining logs, controlling bias, monitoring, and all these different aspects of security, patch management. So you will have to keep all these considerations if you are like doing it on premise or on a VM as well.
Yeah, and I think that answers one of the questions, at least partially anyway, around maintaining data privacy and security, when using an open source LLM. I think that answers a lot of those questions. And I think too, probably just having a good LLM ops, program set up where you can incorporate some of these things too, just to make sure you're adhering to those, is another way of doing that as well.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, moving on the last aspect. So again, performance is something you would want to monitor and keep a close control on, because like you need to evaluate the results of your LLM are not deviating from the expected. So that's where you need to have some kind of metrics. You need to have some kind of measures on, like some of the like traditional parameters like the blue score or root score, or even perplexity in case of if you're using extended knowledge base, how well it is relevant, how well the extracted data is relevant to the question. So these kind of different parameters need to be evaluated to ensure that your model is in control and performing as per the expected requirements. So again, if it's fine tuning, how easily you're able to fine tune. So as Scott mentioned rightly, all these aspects again put into the LLM ops pipeline, which you would set up with a proper enterprise deployment of your LLM. So yeah, anything you would like to add, Scott? So I think we have.
No, I can always add something, but I don't know if it'll add value. So you can just move on to the demo.
Yeah, so I'll quickly showcase one of the applications we have used the Mistral model here. So this is a resume, like it's a profile management system, and we have used different aspects of AI. So if you know WalkingTree, and if you have visited our website, you would have read about, or maybe you have noticed some of the solutions, and maybe you have noticed this one also. So Engage Well, Aspira. So these are all different aspects of how we are enabling the HR department, the recruitment team with AI. And I'll be showcasing one aspect of it where, as you know, like resumes come in different formats, and it becomes difficult to search on it and collate it, consolidate it. So the idea of the PMS here, so we use AI to extract the key like parameters or features, features of the resume, and make it searchable for the user or the recruitment specialist, to be able to handle the profiles easily and make their task easy. Also, to give a context, like I mentioned Aspira, so I'll just quickly mention. So that is another solution which we have built as part of this, which is intelligent interview agent, which interacts with. So we use it for the first level interaction, where we have a planned question depending on the profile. So that helps us speed up the interview process, where we don't have to wait for the SME and just go on with the interview. So yeah, so I just wanted to quickly mention that. I have picked up a few resumes. So yeah, this one. So as you can see, like this is a PDF resume which has.
Abhilasha or Tanishka, can you see?
No,
I see the demo slide.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, we're just seeing the demo slide.
Okay, I'll just reshare. I'm sorry.
Okay, again, no worries.
Yeah.
And guys, I know we're kind of at the bottom of the hour, so
we'll
certainly share the recording. We'll continue this, and if you need to drop this, fine. But we'll make sure these questions get answered. We'll answer them live too, so that they can be on the recording if you have to drop. But if you can bear with us a minute, we'll finish up in probably 10 minutes or so. Abhilasha, something like that.
Yeah, I'll make it fast. So yeah, I just wanted to show like Mistral. So basically, we used so when we started off this solution, we used like, in fact, we started off with GPT-3, and then we migrated to the future versions of, so up to GPT-4, and then More recently, we explored the open source models. We tried out Mixtral and Llama 3, which was more recent, and both of those models have performed equally well. And we are able to we explored the deployment on cloud, other like AWS and Azure. But we are using the Grok version, and sometimes if there is an issue with so we have some kind of mechanism to have support models as a backup in order to help the solution extract and show the results. So this is the resume, and then yeah, I mean, you can just go to the files. And if I upload a resume here, so basically, this submits a background process which does the extraction to it. It makes use of the model and it does the extraction. So while this is running, I'll just show you. I mean, this is the extraction data which I just to show you the comparison. Like we also did some amount of fine tuning. So like using a 5,000 resume database. We did some fine tuning on Mistral 7B also, and we were able to achieve decent results there. But yeah, Mixtral model is better and superior in an overall performance. So that with Llama 3 and some amount of GPT models, we are using it here. So you can see like this is the extraction which happens. So on the front end also this. Yeah, so this takes some time, and then you can see Priyadarshini's resume is extracted, and you can see the details of like the skills, the experience, and yeah, things like that. So yeah, this is one of the use cases. Also, like I will quickly show you, I saw many people mentioned Olama when we had like on our initial query of Tanushka about the models. So Olama is more of like a you can say a system or an infrastructure which lets you run the models on your servers or even your local system. So this is one thing which like I was recently trying. So running a model on my system. So this you set up using Olama serve, and then you decide which model you want to use. So you use Olama pool, and here I'm using a model called Open-Source. So this is like a decent performing model for like a smaller use case, I would say. Of course, on a small compute like a what do you say, a laptop, you would not see instant result, but then the results are good. So this will, and this is a Mistral like a specialized Mistral model which was fine-tuned for a special use case. So just to quickly show if I have that open. So this is the so this is how you would consume it. So this is a Crew AI is another. So usually like when you're using these models, you would go up with a framework where you can define your agents which perform these different actions. And each of these agents are powered by a language model. So Crew AI is another good framework which lets you do that in a seamless and clean way, you can say, where you can define your agents, you can define the tools which are available for the agent. So as you can see the code here, so this is like a simple showcase just to show you how you can use open source models for these kind of use cases also, where it reads a PDF. So there's a tool to read a local PDF, and then there are your agents. One is reading. The second is trying to identify the list of features or key points from the PDF, and the third is trying to generate a recommendation. So a kind of a crew, a specialist crew, which is working together to solve your problem. And like for the demo, I used one of index funds from India, and it was like a huge document. So a 113 page, right? Yeah, so this is like a 113 page document PDF, which I used for this model. Of course, it took time, but then I just kept the results here. So you can see like each of the agent runs. So if you have tried the agent feature, like you will have each agent kick in. So when you define your agents, and then you will define the tasks which the agents can perform. So your highlights, drafting, your record generation, where you give the description of what you're expecting the task to be. So that gives a context to the agent of like what to perform. And then you define the crew with the agents and the tasks, and then you kick off the crew. So this is like the most straightforward or simple way to use it, clearly defining the things. Of course, as your agent becomes more intelligent, you would need more tools, you would need more interfaces, external libraries, interactions. So that's how you can evolve. But you can see that, so this is here purely like driven by the Mistral model, which I showed you, which is hosted on this URL, and it goes through the PDF, it extracts the PDF, and then it generates the key points and also gives a final recommendation. So based on the features, we strongly recommend investing in this fund. In this fund, and then it gives the reasons also. So you can see like a small model which is running on my system. It takes time to generate, but then it is giving a decent performance. So yeah, with this, like I would like to conclude. Any last thoughts? Any concluding thoughts, Scott? Or we would take up the question answers.
No, I don't think so. I think again, just know that we do a lot of this, and so if you have any questions, you need any help, always feel free to reach out to WalkingTree for help in that regard. Otherwise, let's just get to the questions. So it looks like the first one, I saw an anonymous attendee talk about Gwyn 2, and I confess I don't know a ton about this model other than I think it's from Alibaba Cloud, and I don't know, have you ever any experience with Gwyn 2?
Gwyn
2?
I mean, I'm not sure if I remember the right one, but is it a SLM or a big? I'm not sure, Scott. I will better not comment here because the names are quite confusing. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't even know if I'm actually pronouncing it the way it's supposed to be pronounced.
Yeah, that was just.
But it is another one available, though. Suffice it to say, I can't give a lot of detail on it, but. And then we had a question about, can you share GitHub links? I'm not sure I know the context of that one, or if you're saying maybe can you provide links to the models? In that case, I would just say go to the Hugging Face models page, and it gives you links to where you can download those, not necessarily right off of
so the
Hugging
the next question
they give you links.
Yeah. So yeah, the next question again, can you download or clone these models? So you can absolutely go to the Hugging Face portal and the hub there, and then you can download these models. You would have playgrounds for the models also. You can actually directly run it on Hugging Face just to try, or you can also deploy it on cloud. So Hugging Face has become like a one-stop shop for all these models, and it gives good capabilities there. So yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Nice. All right. So next one, can you please tell me how do open source LLMs handle multilingual capabilities compared to commercial models? Do you have any thoughts around that one?
Yeah, so I mean, considering the performance, like Llama 3 and Mistral models, I'm sure they are comparable. But yeah, to be honest, I don't have any data on this. Like I haven't personally tested it. So yeah, maybe yeah, we can get back on that.
Yeah, for sure. I haven't used it on open source either. Maybe used the commercial ones, obviously, for
Yeah.
a few things, but yeah, we'll have to get back on that one. Okay. Okay, can you suggest steps or ideas to solve out-of-memory errors while handling multiple inferencing requests while scaling our applications in production?
Yeah, so basically, like depending on the size of the model, you will have to choose the right GPU. And then if, I mean, I'm assuming that if you're doing on a cloud like say Azure, AWS or Azure, so like one of the libraries which I mentioned, the VLLM, so that is a good library to use, which gives you direct, you can say easy to use commands to be able to scale real time and handle like multiple requests. So that is definitely one of the things you can use for this problem instead of going into like details of the infrastructure.
Good deal.
Yeah, the next question is, what are some strategies for overcoming resistance to adopting open source LLMs within an organization? Okay, yeah, that's an interesting one. So maybe I'll according to me, yeah, there is like generally people have this concern with the word open source and it may not be safe and things like that. But here we need to understand like we are going with an open source LLM for the control aspect of it, for the transparency aspect of it, and for the power which it is bringing comparable to the foundational models. Generally, organizations may be hesitant to use. So I would say that is the biggest factor, and definitely for the other aspects like security and privacy. So that is something you can additionally control when you have control on your LLM, the way you deploy it, the way you handle it. You can take care of the other things as part of that. So yeah, anything you would like to add, Scott?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the bigger issues we've honestly faced have been overusing the commercial models and worrying about privacy and so forth. And the commercial models have policies around privacy for sure. But some of the issues we faced where we needed the open source LLMs was that hey, we need to run it locally, like we talked about, because their policies don't allow them to traverse outside of their own network, for example. In that case, it's kind of an easy sell, and then really you look at how these have been used and really kind of the research that's out there. And I really think, when you start looking at all those factors, the links we've kind of talked through, the decisions you have to make, I mean, those are all selling points, right, in terms of using open source or not, for example. So if you don't have the right resources or people in place to manage these, then of course that makes it easy too. That's not a good selling point, but it at least helps you make those decisions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Next one is, can we use Ollama models with LangChain?
Yeah, so I think by Ollama, we mean the open source models here. So yeah, absolutely you can use.
Yep.
In fact, both LangChain and Llama Index are like they are up to date and they keep publishing packages and support for all the new models like Llama 3 and Mistral. So you can use. Absolutely. Can you explain more about agents and how this is different from RAG? Okay. So agents are more like, you can say, instances of the language model. You're like personification of LLM and you're giving it a role. You're giving it some instructions. And now it takes the role of a virtual agent and performs the task. Now the task can be like just reading from a local file, or it can be getting data from the internet, or it can be like maybe saving data into a database. So you can do any action using the agent. Now, when you, so this ecosystem becomes important because it gives you the capability to handle different actions by means of, so for this, you would define different tasks and tools to say fetch, like read data or fetch data. And then on top of that, so RAG, if you say how it is different from RAG, so RAG is one aspect of how you can augment the knowledge of your language model. So when you want to add extra context, you add through this retrieval augmented generation, that's RAG. And RAG can be a part of your agent. So one of the tasks could be like attaching the extra context. So that's what, like, these are two, you can say, different aspects of how you're using your language model. Agent being the complete ecosystem trying to perform an enterprise activity, trying to automate it, and RAG is the extra knowledge you're adding to your model. Hope this answers. This looks like an interesting application of open source LLMs for RAG plus AI agents to complete a complex task. Can we recreate this with LangChain instead of True AI? Yes, absolutely, we can do that. In fact, I think we have a blog on our website where we are using RAG with one of the open source models, so do check out. And so it can be done with LangChain also. Yeah, the next question is regarding hallucinations. Any issues that you faced? Yeah, I mean, hallucinations is like a feature of LLM. That's because of the power they have. They tend to hallucinate, but then it's just about how you can control it. And if you use the LLM in the right way, you can control hallucinations by giving the right prompts, by giving the right expectations. So, like for example, just telling the model to quote the source from where you're getting the data, so that it becomes extra like careful that it has to pick up the data only from the provided context, and then give the reference as well. And then again, RAG is another way you can control. Then have additional evaluation mechanism to have a double check that there is no hallucination or no wrong data which is going through. So yeah, I mean, hallucination, I think we have gone past those days that we are better able to control the hallucinations of LLM by using the different, the way prompt engineering has matured from the time when this all started, I would say. So I think it's much better and in control now. Can these LLMs be used for predictions to streaming data in real time or near real time? Yeah, so you can do it. You would need like a good compute, and then you can do like a streaming output, so that can be done. But the only thing is, yeah, your infrastructure should support real time. It should have the capability. So as I showed in the presentation also, like 50 tokens per second, right? With the Llama 3 model, the kind of infrastructure with the, say, AWS GPU, which we mentioned. So accordingly, like, you can control. So of course, or you go with a Grok also. Again, when you're depending on a provider, you will have to look for the enterprise version of the like the endpoint, because that will be more predictable, and there you can expect a better latency. So Grok is definitely something which gives you better latency and will be suitable for real time if you get the enterprise feature. Yeah, recording will be available.
For sure.
I think we have many more questions, and we are. So should we continue, Scott?
Yeah, I think probably let's take the questions. Tanishka, can we save these questions? We can certainly answer them offline, not an issue.
Sure, yeah, we can save these questions.
Yeah, let's save these questions, Abhilasha. Yeah, probably. Yeah, we're a good bit over, so let's kind of cut that. But then let's take these questions, and then between you and I, we can certainly get these out there. Maybe post them on LinkedIn. For this underneath this webinar. So we'll answer them that
Yeah,
way.
sure, yeah.
Okay, very good. Tanishka, over to you.
Yeah, so it was a great session, and I would like to thank you so much, our incredible speakers, Scott and Abhilasha, for sharing your expertise today. And a huge thank you for all of you joining us. We hope that you found today's discussion insightful and inspiring. So before we wrap up, I am thrilled to announce our next webinar, which is scheduled for 18th of July, titled Pixel Streaming Using Unreal Engine, Next Gen 3D on the Web. So in this particular session, we'll explore how pixel streaming technology is revolutionizing web-based 3D experiences using Unreal Engine. So thank you again for your participation. We look forward to see you in our next webinar. Stay tuned for new updates and have a fantastic day. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Tanishka. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, guys.